Good morning, everyone. This is T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to Building a Career That Matters. Today is Monday, March 31st, and I believe this is our 13th session. The program, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Building a Career That Matters, is based on the research we started conducting in 2010 about success factors impacting individuals operating private practices in the human development industry. So speakers, trainers, coaches, consultants, etc. We identified some 52 roadblocks that they have to address at some point in time if they really want to build the best business they can build. And so what we've done is devoted 1 week to each one of those 52 roadblocks. And so this is a full year program. We do them every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. This is something that we provide as a service to all members of our ChangeWorks community. There is a home page for this program I'm going to take you to in just a second to show you where all the recordings can be found. But what's really important is that if you want to know what's going on in the world of the Attention Management or the Institute, you need to make sure you subscribe to our blog so that you receive our weekly posting on the events that are coming up for this week. If you do have any questions, you're always welcome to call us. Our phone number is area code 704-987-6500, and we'll be more than happy to help you any way we can. Most of you are accessing the call today using your computer's built-in speakers and microphones, and so if you've got a headset on, we're happy to unmute you so you can listen and participate openly. If you aren't using a headset, then we prefer to leave your lines muted so that we can reduce the amount of background noise. That said, if you guys got any questions or comments along the way, you're always welcome to either, to type us a question in the question panel. So that's the best way. We're always monitoring that. We're happy to either share your question with the audience, or we're happy to unmute your line and let you communicate openly. So please remember, this is your call. We want you to participate, but technology being the way that it is, we have to kind of do what we can to keep things nice and clean. All right, so with that, let's just for a moment show you where the documents can be found. If you go to productivetension.com, this is the home page for everything that we do. In fact, I'll go ahead and chat it over to you. John, the chat window, I've just sent all of you the link to this page. If you go to productivetension.com, scroll up a little bit, you'll find all the latest, greatest news for what's going on here. So over on the far left side, you see the navigation for our website. In the center column, you see the 2 most recent postings on our blog, and so if you want to get to the full community events list, right there it is. But over here, over to the right, we do have a list of all the upcoming events. So right now we're doing our Building a Career That Matters call. 1 o'clock today is the ChangeWorks Forum. All members of the ChangeWorks community are welcome to participate in the forum. It's a great opportunity for you to learn more about using the online system. And if you guys haven't done that yet, remember you have lifetime access to a wonderful tool online that'll tell you what's going on with your own level of productive tension. Beginning tomorrow, we're going to be doing the ChangeWorks Essentials program. This is core training for ChangeWorks practitioners. So this is the first step that anyone who is on the professional track would be taking. It's part of your community membership, so you're all welcome to attend that. However, you really should have already gone through Mastering Personal Change, which is what we've done for the past couple of weeks. So that being said, these things are all recorded. You can always listen to the recordings of a prior program if you want to bring yourself up to speed. But tomorrow and Friday, we'll be going through the core training for ChangeWorks practitioners. Specifically, this is about how you use the change grid with your individual clients. And so how do you go about crafting good activity lists? How do you go about interpreting a group or an individual profile for someone, etc. On Thursday, we do our ongoing professional development call, and right now we're in the midst of a series of calls about the change grid layer by layer. This is a program for our one moment. Oh, I was doing so well. I'm getting over a cold. Okay, right now we're in the midst of doing a series called the change grid layer by layer. And in this series, we are doing a deep dive into all the different models that came to be integrated into what you see today as the change grid. That's for all of our ChangeWorks professionals, so practitioners, master practitioners, and trainers. You're all welcome to participate in that. Again, all the details you'll find at the blog post if you want to see that. And then Friday, we talked about that, and then next Monday, we're back to our normal cycle. Now, where you find the homepage for this program is under ChangeWorks Community. you'll find Building a Career That Matters, and if you click there, you'll come to a page that lists all the topics we'll be covering, the dates for the vast majority of them. Anything we've already done, you'll find a link to the recording for that particular program. If you'd like to go back and just focus on an isolated topic or 5, you can do that. Right now, our block of topics is about your products and services. So last week we talked about gaps in programs and services. Today we're talking about the lack of proprietary intellectual property, and next week it'll be on competitive differentiation. So this is a great place to find registration links. If you'd like to attend any of the programs, you'll always find the registration links there, and the recording links for things that we finished. So this is the homepage for you guys to know all about. All right, so with that, any questions, comments, thoughts to share before we launch into this? Okay. But with that, then, let's get into today's subject. Today's subject is roadblock number 13, lack of proprietary intellectual property. And what we want to do is answer this key question: what do you contribute? Now, this program is really intended for those of you who are trying to make your own mark in this industry. So rather than just being someone who gets trained and certified to teach a program or deliver a set of services, and now you just kind of go through that, and that's all fine with that, but you're just locked into the delivery kind of business model, I don't really know that you'll find today's program much more than interesting. However, if you are the kind of professional who is always trying to take things to a new level. You've got your own insights, your own approach for doing something. You've got your own, passion around a particular subject or around a particular way of working with people. You have a great potential for converting that into intellectual property, which can get converted into a whole lot of other things, not the least of which is cash. So I think this is about those of you that are out there trying to build on what you've already learned, but you're trying to take it to a whole different place. So let's go ahead and read the little paragraph I put here to explain what I meant by this whole roadblock. The vast majority of professionals working in the human development industry have proven themselves to be good students and competent technicians. They've learned what they need to know and do a great job of applying that knowledge and skill in the work they do with their clients. But very few are innovators, or at least they don't see themselves as the innovators they are. What are or could be the greatest contributions you've made to this industry, and how do you transform them into a valuable nest egg for your future? This is what we really want to be looking at. Now, of all the things that we talk about in building a career that matters, I would like to suggest that I have particular expertise in this particular area. I mean, if you think about what we've been doing for these 32 years, I started off delivering rather basic sorts of training programs, basic sales and management and supervisory skills and time management, just the kind of basics. But as I did that, I started to develop my own way of doing things. And now, here we are some 32 years later, and I can point to over 300 hours of unique program content that we developed. We've certified hundreds and hundreds of professionals in our material. We created a tool called the Change Grid. We've certified people to use that. We have we've got a lot of things that we've done now applying this concept of tension management, which, by the way, we hold a federally registered trademark on the phrase tension management and on the phrase productive tension. So this is not only something that we're passionate about, we have intellectual property around, we kind of gave rise to a whole concept here. So we know what we're talking about when it comes to this whole idea about developing intellectual property and then leveraging that intellectual property in a variety of interesting and perhaps very lucrative sorts of ways. So for those of you who do have that thought about what do you have that you could label as proprietary intellectual property, this is who we really wanted to spend some time with today. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead. Now, I got to remind you from something we covered, I don't know, maybe it was session 2 or 3. We were talking about the different kinds of business that people want as part of building their overall enterprise. So let me go ahead and give you just a reminder definition for each one of these. When I talk about you getting a piece of business, business is an opportunity for you to trade programs, products, and services for X amount of dollars. And whenever you can do that with a customer or with a client, you've just had a little bit of business. You gave them something, they gave you money. Relationship is now over and done with. Now, beyond business, there's repeat business. Repeat business is when you're offering a service that an individual has an ongoing need for. So they're not just going to hire you that one-time business transaction. They are actually going to continue to use you, or at least have the potential to continue to use you for a good deal of time to come. So when I talk about selling any sort of a training program to a corporate client, well, because of the subjects we focus on, these are subjects that they have an ongoing need for. So if I can start that relationship, in all likelihood, I can continue to benefit from that relationship for a long time to come. So we've got some clients we've been working with for years and years, a decade longer. So these are where we're talking about repeat business. You go in, you do something, and you can continue to do that for that client for a long time to come. Whether that's delivering a program or delivering a service like coaching, that's what repeat business is. Now, beyond repeat business, there's residual business. Residual business is that you offer something to someone in such a way that they can continue to use it themselves, no longer requiring you to have any actual involvement in there. So, for example, if you create any kind of like a book, a publication, and you put it out there, and people continue to buy it, and they can continue to buy it forever, and it requires little, if any, participation on your part, other than, well, you got to fulfill the order, but you're not really doing any service delivery for that. That's a residual business kind of a concept. So you do something once, and you continue to get paid for it forever, then some. Maybe even after you are long gone, no longer on our planet, someone could still be buying that book. And so that's what we're talking about for residual business. Also, if you have a training program and you are licensing others to teach that program, that's a residual business as well, because they're going to continue to pay you those licensing fees for the duration of whatever that licensing period happens to be. And then the final one is legacy business. Legacy business is when you actually build something that you can actually convert to cash. You can actually turn it into something that is like a nest egg. So when I talk about legacy business, I mean you have built a clientele and in such a way that you can now sell your practice to another professional so they can take over where you left off with all those clients. Or if you built a training company, you don't have to be involved with it anymore. You built a company so someone else can do that. So there's a legacy that you are creating there, and that legacy business gives you the opportunity to convert to cash at some point in time, if that's really what you wanted to do. So when we're talking about intellectual property, I'm not talking about the people who are interested in plain old business or even repeat business. I'm now looking at that residual business opportunity and that legacy business opportunity. So again, by residual, create a product, program, or service that will continue to be bought, or has licensing fees, things like that associated with it. Or legacy, you're building something that you can actually sell to others. All right, so with that, let's talk about what is intellectual property. Now, I'm no attorney, and so I'm not going to give you the kinds of explanations that you could learn even if you went out there and Googled what is intellectual property. But this is the definition that I think is a very useful, approachable one for all of us that are really more in the world of delivery but want to leverage it. It's the application of the mind to something new or original. So just look at that, and instead of thinking like intellectual property has got to be something that you have published or some piece of software that you have released out there, that's not what I don't want you to limit it to that, although those are certainly forms of intellectual property. Anything that you do that involves applying your mind to develop something new or original, you are at the birth there of intellectual property. So I just want to check in with you guys right now, and everyone use this question control panel to get back to me. When I say to you now, I ask you this question, give me a good honest answer. Do you guys feel that you currently have something to show for you using your mind to develop something new or original? So it may not be brand new, but you've come up with an original way to approach whatever it is. So how many of you actually feel that you are in the developmental stage or ready, you've got this intellectual property. All right, so this is what I want you to do. You've recognized you didn't just learn what you needed to learn. You didn't just develop the skills, and you didn't just show yourself to be a capable technician in applying that knowledge and skill in purposeful ways. You said, no, 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 no. That might be where I started, but I'm going someplace else. I've taken everything that I've learned, and I have now allowed it to evolve, to morph into something that I can point to and say, that is uniquely mine. So that's what we're really looking for. Now, I think it's really wonderful. I've got, yes, you guys have got, yeah, even Brian is suggesting he has over 400 blog entries. When you've got over 400 blog entries, you got a book. So, you know, you slap each blog entry on one page, you've got yourself a rather long book. And so, you know, this is it adds up. It adds up. So I love you guys are talking about you've created a product or you're in the developmental stage. This is really, really wonderful. So let's talk about how you can really branch out and do that. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have if you want to know anything about our experience in intellectual property. I'll certainly share plenty as we work our way through this, but feel free to ask. So why should you bother with IP? Why should you bother at all? Well, there's lots of reasons. These 5 are the ones that I kind of hold near and dear. I think number one, it differentiates you from anyone else who's out there. So it's interesting. If someone wanted to hire a life coach right now, you went online, you Googled life coach, you're going to find thousands, tens of thousands of them. And yeah, some might be physically closer than another, but it's kind of like, all right, there's no differentiation if all you are is yet another life coach. It's not to diminish the work that life coaches do, but you can't call it unique. And so what is it that some of these life coaches could do, though, that makes them stand out? And so this is what we're talking about. If they've developed some unique way of doing the work they call life coaching, or if they have developed some sort of a following because they've done it, now we're talking about some differentiation. So are they differentiating themselves by coming up with unique products or services? Are they differentiating themselves by being the person, by being the personality? So they are the differentiator as opposed to the content being the differentiator. So we want IP because it's a great way to differentiate yourself in some substantial, meaningful way. When I have IP, now I've got something I can actually market around that no one else can market around because I mean, it's my intellectual property. I'm the one who can market around it. Other people have to market around their own intellectual property or whatever their base skills happen to be. So I think the more intellectual property you have, the easier job you're going to have of marketing yourself in a way that separates you from everyone else. Again, gets back to that differentiation. I think IP gives you a great opportunity to branch yourself. So if you guys look at anything on the Productive Tension website, you will find all kinds of programs. We do all kinds of titles. We've got ChangeWorks. We've got a lifetime of leads. We've got the accountable self. We've got the business of change. We've got building a career that matters. We've got all these kinds of things. We've got the change grid, but nowhere will you ever see anything labeled with my name on it. I don't call it the Napier method. I don't call it the Napier change management system. I don't do that. I can build branding around the intellectual property. And what's good about building your branding around the intellectual property is that it sets you up to sell it later on. If later on you decide it's time to retire and you'd like to, make some money on the way out the back door, you're going to have a very difficult time doing that if your method, your tools, your approach, your whatever is labeled with your name. Because the buying public is going to wonder, well, if the person whose name is on it is no longer around, then why do we still call it that, or what am I really getting? Now, there's plenty of exceptions to that rule. Dale Carnegie is long gone, but the program is still called the Dale Carnegie Course in Effective Human Relations. So you can do all that, but from a branding perspective, the thing that our IP attorneys have always told us, and this is now a good 10 years ago, is get your name off of everything. Because while having your name attached to it may help you right now as far as putting that spotlight on you personally, in the long run, what's worth more money to you? You personally or the intellectual property that you've created? Well, that's a decision you're each going to have to make. Obviously, the decision that we made was that while I've been blessed to do very well for myself over these decades, that my intellectual property is worth infinitely more money than I was ever able to make as an individual practitioner providing services to end users. I could continue to deliver services to end users forever, but it will never represent the value that that intellectual property has. And so our advice was, if you have good intellectual property, you can brand around that intellectual property, and that you can still differentiate yourself in the short run, but in the long run, you can probably command a higher price because it'll be easier for whoever the successor is to, I guess, continue the business in a seamless way, so they don't really lose a lot of that. Another reason why we want to have our own IP is so we can leverage things a bit more effectively. Again, if I am trained to do certain programs and I am skilled at providing certain services, I can make plenty of money teaching those programs and providing those services. But where's the extra money? Where's the other income streams? I don't have a book. I don't have a video series. I don't have a membership website. I don't have a licensing opportunity. I don't have, whatever this growing customer base happens to be. So if I have intellectual property, I've got something I can actually leverage. I can make money. In fact, today I could decide I never want to get on the phone and do another call again. I still got all kinds of intellectual property that I could, package and market and deliver in other formats, and and do something else with it. And so I have a lot more leverage because I have this intellectual property. And ultimately, and this might be the selfish one, is there's a bit of a legacy. Some of you on the call have known me for years, and so you know that back when we were in our 40s, we decided we might want to give give it a little try of retirement. Wouldn't it be great? Let's retire when we're 40. Well, that proved to be really boring, really, really quickly. And so when we decided that we were going to come out of retirement, it didn't even take us a year to get bored. When we decided to come out of retirement, I said, though, but I don't want to go back to being an individual who is focused on delivering services to end users. If I'm going to come back in here, I want to get rid of this strange feeling that I had, because when I retired, I said, it's great that I retired, but oh my gosh, my life's work just retired at the same time. So programs like MasterStream and ChangeWorks and Pride-Based Leadership and the Accountable Self, all these things were literally put up on a shelf and not looked at, not touched, not nothing. When I retired, my life's work retired as well. So when I came back in, I said, no, the focus has got to be more on this intellectual property. I need to focus our energy on identifying, certifying, and supporting a team of human development professionals who will take these principles and use these tools with their clients and continue to do that for generations to come. So it's more that I said I'll come back, but it's because I want this, my life's work, to have a life of its own. So I believe my job was more to be, I'm the person who, created ChangeWorks and all that sort of stuff, and that's all fine and dandy. But I believe there are people out there who will take ChangeWorks to a level I can't even imagine. I might be its parent, the parent of ChangeWorks, but it's old enough now that it needs to have a life of its own. And so this idea about leaving a legacy, letting something represent your life beyond the money that you made or the relationships that you had, what is it that you can actually leave behind? So this is why I think it's important that you want to bother with IP. And there's a lot of other reasons too, but I'm kind of curious. What's your big motivator? Why did you guys decide you wanted to have some IP? Was it differentiation, marketing, branding, leverage, legacy? Did you just want to make more money? I mean, what is it that has made you take an interest in creating intellectual property? Let me get some comments from you guys. Got a nice crowd on the call today. Yeah, differentiation. Daniel's saying to leave a legacy. Yeah, yep. Yep, so you guys are covering them all. It gave you something to brand around, okay? Barney's sharing here. My dream is bigger than the money. That's it. And, for me, my dream is bigger than that. But if I'm speaking my heart's truth, my mission is more than that. I feel like I have a purpose. I really don't think that I would have okay, if this sounds a little too spiritual, sorry about that. But when I think about the body of work that I've created, I have to wonder, did I create it or was it created through me? And so I tend to think that it's something I've been entrusted with. more so than it's something that I have been the actual creator of. And because I view myself as being its steward, my job is to really nurture it and formalize it, do whatever I can do so that this knowledge base about tension management can go out there and do the work that it was intended to do. So hopefully that doesn't sound too mystical, but that's actually exactly where my head comes from. Yeah, differentiation, marketing, branding, money, that's good. More differentiation. A call to extend my discoveries to a larger audience. Kate, I like the way that you've positioned that. And that's it. It is kind of this, you would go like, I didn't just have this understanding because it just happened. There's got to be a purpose behind it. And even if you know what, maybe there isn't really one, we should decide there is one. We should decide there's a purpose so that we can have a vision, we can have a mission, and we can go out there and try to have impact on the world beyond those that we can directly touch. So that's what it's all about. Let's see. Yeah, we are the messenger, not the message. This is exactly right, Barney. And so you guys get it. This is why we're really trying to create it. And so if the only reason why you're interested in IP is to make money, I don't really know that your IP is going to end up having the life it deserves. But if you go like, no, this is my intellectual property. This is something that came out of my mind, out of my heart, out of my spirit, and the world needs to know this. And whether my life's work is encapsulated in a book sitting on a shelf somewhere, or is occupying X number of megs of storage on some server someplace, or whatever, it needs to be able to survive beyond me. And so it'll serve me well while I'm here, but once I'm gone, I'd like to know that it's only getting started. So that's our kind of spirit around this whole IP thing. All right, so with that, the question becomes, what is your IP status? And so I've put together a list of, 12, 14, 15 different types of IP that people in the human development industry could put some energy into. And I just want you to answer this question for each one of them. Have you put no work into that particular form of IP? Have you looked at some of the possibilities? So you go like, maybe I could do that. I haven't done it yet, but that maybe, so you're starting to think about the possibilities. Do you currently have that IP formalization process underway? Or are you done with it? So, how many of you have actually not started yet? Where are you on this progress? So are you at no progress whatsoever, looking at possibilities, you're well underway to developing it, or you're done with it altogether? Now, I'm going to ask you guys to answer this question based on each of the different types of intellectual property we're about to go over. Hopefully this is going to expand your thinking so that you might be stimulated to go like, wow, I could also create that. I could also create that. If I'm going to get into this world of intellectual property, what are all the different things I could put out there? And so again, here's a good, I guess it's 14 I put here. Number one, the easiest one for any of you to do is to write articles. The moment you write an article and at the bottom of it you slap a little copyright symbol on it, you've now got yourself a piece of intellectual property. Towards the end of today's program, I am going to give you a non-attorney's insight into what the different types of intellectual property are, but one of the types of intellectual property are copyrights. And the great thing about a copyright is that anyone can copyright anything they wish to say. So a copyright is basically declaring to the world that you have an intention to do something around this particular work. And whether that work is a slogan or that work is a book, you're just saying like, this is my copy. This is something that I have designed, I have created, I have written, or I have recorded. These are the things that are copyrightable. And all you have to do is put the copyright symbol with the year and your name. And you've just said that. It's also good to put down all rights reserved just to give yourself a little bit of protection. You can also do a formal copyright. There are actually forms you can fill out and fees you can pay to have a little bit more of a registered copyright, but it doesn't change the symbol you can put next to something. If it is content, it gets copyrighted, and anybody can put that little copyright symbol next to it. One thing we were advised to do very early on is that if you want to really establish your copyright date in a very official way, if a question ever arises about who used this phrase first or who generated whatever this diagram happens to be first, one thing we were told to do is anytime you're going to do a self-copyright, you want to print out the page, or capture the recording in some media, and then you want to seal it into an envelope that you are going to send to yourself as registered mail, and you can even have a notary public officialize the date that it's all happening. Now, you don't want to ever open that or anything. That is your protection, but that way you can at least say, if a question ever arises, I can officially say that on this date at this time, with a witness present, I created this. And so you've got all those ways of officializing it. Obviously, if you're going to go through all the time and expense of having the government do it for you, then now you've got that document they'll send you to establish that. But that's not necessary in order to establish copyright. So all y'all should be writing plenty of articles, and they should all be copyrighted. It does not matter if it's published in what you consider to be a mainstream sort of publication. It doesn't have to be in a magazine, a print magazine. It doesn't have to be. Today we can publish anything we want, anytime we want, and so feel free to do that extensively. Now, as Brian said earlier, he has over 400 postings he's done up on his blog. Well, each one of those could probably serve as a very nice article. And you get enough articles together, and we go to the next one, a book. How many of you have already written a book? Doesn't matter whether it got published by some major publishing company or not. How many of you actually have a book? So do you have none? Is it underway? You're thinking about it. Is it underway? Have you finished it? How many of you have got a book? So, yep, all right, so now books written too. Dinah's written a couple of books there. Brian's got one unpublished, started. Okay, great, great, great. Now, again, in the old days, you want to have something published, you'd have to get yourself, well, you probably have to find yourself an agent first, and the agent would then go and sell your title to a major publishing house, and then you'd have to jump through all their hoops and get all that done, and fine, ta-da, you've got a book published by a major publishing company. And certainly, that's a very attractive thing, even today. Long ago, it was really a remarkable accomplishment. But today, any of us can go out there and self-publish anything we want, anytime we want. And we can have short runs done if we want to actually print it out, or we could just do it as an e-book these days. So we can all publish whatever we want. And so I've always been a believer that there's a book inside of each and every one of us. We just have to decide to take the time to write it. And I think that a great way to write a book is to start by writing articles, and then let those articles assemble them together into chapters or into different books for that matter. So so books are a way to do this as well. Now, every book can obviously, or every article for that matter, could become a video. So how many of you have readily available to you right now a webcam? How many of you have got a webcam? All right, yeah. Now, anyone who's bought a new computer in the past couple of years, you definitely have one, and it's probably better quality than you imagine. Now, we have a full video studio here in our offices. So we've got green screens, and we've got, serious lighting, and we've got all kinds of microphones and teleprompters. I mean, we've got the whole shebang. Because in the old days, if you really wanted to produce a video, that's what you had to invest in. That's what you had to do. Well, today, anyone with a decent computer can probably record one sitting at their desk. So we encourage people to not only write an article, but now put yourself on screen and read that article. And so now for the people who would rather listen to what you have to say rather than read it, you've got that. Well, those videos can be copyrighted as well. So there's no reason why these things can't feed into another. Articles become books, articles and books become videos, and so you might as well leverage it into those multiple forms. Now again, if you're trying to use this for marketing purposes, what a handy thing to do. You haven't even had to leave your desk yet to write an article, a book, or create a video. And then, in fact, Barney just typed this over. It's very easy for you to set up a YouTube channel. They're free right now. There's a little bit of advertising they might sprinkle in occasionally. We happen to use Vimeo. We have Vimeo Pro. It's I think it's just a couple $100 a year, and that allows you to have way more storage than, I think every week we can upload 50 gigabytes of video. I can't imagine what 50 gigabytes would even, I mean, what am I uploading? I can't produce anything that fast, let alone, go through all the trouble of uploading it. So, it's a ridiculous opportunity. And certainly YouTube and Vimeo have got plenty of competitors as well. So there's countless places that you can go out there and put your videos. So now, right there, I think that if we go no further than this, every single human development professional I've ever met should certainly be able to write an article. And they should certainly be able to accumulate those articles and can create books, and they should certainly be able to sit in front of a screen and read that. Now, there's lots of issues around production value, like do you want to make a video of yourself reading an article and it looks like you're reading an article, or do you really want to get a teleprompter so you can have some engagement with the person who's watching the video or listening to the audio version of it? Okay, the next thing are apps. It's really, really interesting to me how easy it is today to create a piece of software. Now, we've got a lot of experience creating software. We made our first attempt to automate the design of a change grid probably, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago. We looked into it long before that, but we'd actually have to have someone create a piece of software to run on a PC or a piece of software to run on a Mac. And then they said, no, we don't need that anymore. Now we can run software on the internet. And so that's when we were able to start finding developers who would help us create our software. We've probably invested over $100,000 in the creation of our ChangeWorks software over the years. Now it's in its I'm going to say fourth incarnation, and we're constantly updating it and changing it. So we've created this piece of software. Now, interestingly enough, I believe that had we started today with all the stuff that we've done up to this, this $100,000 we've spent, I could probably get everything done for a third of that price. And so it's becoming more and more economical to create different kinds of applications. And whether you're going to do something that's as sophisticated as the change grid, or if you've got another psychometric tool, your own kind of diagnostic sort of tool, you can do that. But a lot of people are trying to create little apps for people to use on their smartphones or their tablets. And we've actually been working on a simple one as well called the Oracle of the Self. The Oracle of the Self is a self-reading change grid. It's very basic. I mean, basic is too advanced of a word to even use. I mean, primitive is probably a better way to look at it. But it's a fun little thing that anybody could say, think about a change you're making, rate your level of ability, then rate your level of challenge, and it only gives you 25 different possible combinations, and then it tells you here's what's happening and that. So it's really a very simple thing. Ask someone 2 questions. Those 2 answers end up bringing up one little text block out of 25, and there's their answer. So it's a very simple kind of thing. So as we put it together, we thought, all right, is this something we would want to give away for free just to kind of get the buzz out there? Like, oh, they're all playing with this, because obviously at the end of playing with this very primitive change grid, it says, now if you'd like to really know what's going on with yourself, then click on this link, and it takes you to a list of all of our ChangeWorks certified professionals so that they can use that as a way to kind of build their businesses. So that was our first thought, and we thought, like, okay, then do you want to do it for free? Do you want to charge 99 cents for the thing? Where do you really want to put something like this? And so I think that there's a lot of really interesting app opportunities for all of you. Like, for example, how many of you are working with people on issues of accountability? And for one of the things you might want to do to boost their level of accountability is send them reminders. Well, it would not be very complicated at all for you to create an app for a smartphone or for a pad that would allow someone to put in a date and a time as a reminder. The software itself, the engine that would run such a thing, is something that is pre-existing and sits in the public domain. You just need a developer to take that and slap your cosmetics all over it. So it's your brand and it's your service of your enterprise, but you can then still put it out there as your intellectual property. So there's lots of great opportunities around the system of apps. Okay, questions, comments so far? Anyone doing anything about apps yet? So there's another one. Done nothing? Are you thinking about it? You're looking at some possibilities. Are you actively working on it, or do you have it finished? Anyone doing anything on the world of apps? Okay, so here's one I'm going to be pushing you towards, because I think that our opportunities are getting greater and greater, and the costs of generating them are getting lower and lower. So a lot of you guys are saying, like, yeah, so Barney, Dan, Lori, Brian, you're all talking about looking at apps, having ideas for them. Um, yeah, thinking about what would be too much work and too complicated. Actually, you know what, Lori? It ends up being pretty easy. So you just have to find a good app developer, and if you guys, I mean, I can certainly recommend one if you guys want, but they're just going to ask you, what is it that you want this person to be able to do or to experience, and whatever that is, if you can explain it on a piece of paper, they can automate it. And I think you'll be quite surprised at how easy it really, really is. Okay, so with that, now beyond that, let's start talking about, many of you on the call today are consultants or coaches, trainers. Have you created some unique process, procedure, technique, method, whatever you want to label it? So yeah, you might have been trained in all of the formal aspects of serving as a consultant, a trainer, a coach, or whatever, but you've decided to take it someplace else. So your process, procedure, technique, method, or even where you're applying it. So for example, among our ChangeWorks professionals, I'm going to believe at least half of them are certified as a coach. And probably they all got started doing some type of life coaching, business coaching, career coaching, executive coaching. But now we're watching them evolve. So now we've got among our team people that are money coaches. All they talk about is your relationship with money. We've got people that are divorce coaches. They only talk to people that are transitioning through divorce. We've got people that are coaching specifically family-owned businesses during going through the transition from the current generation to the next generation. And so it's interesting how people are becoming increasingly specialized, or at least recognizing that they've got an opportunity to become increasingly specialized. So whether we want to say, does that really change coaching at its essence? Probably not. But I'll bet there's a very specific process that each of them have developed, or a procedure, technique, method, whatever word you like using for those. They actually are very different things, but let's lump them all into one category for the sake of today's call. So let me just throw that question to you guys. How many of you feel that when you are delivering your services, you are delivering them in a way that is different than the way your colleagues are delivering what on the surface appears to be similar services? So how many of you believe you got your own little spin, you got your own little method, technique, process, procedure, your special routine? Yeah, now that is actually something that can be turned into intellectual property. If you have developed this approach, and this approach is proving itself to be very effective working with the population you've been targeting, there's got to be other professionals who would like to work with that same population in their area. I'm not asking you to create competition in your own backyard, but on the other side of the country or another country or whatever the case may be. They'd like to work with that same population. They know that your approach is very effective. They'd like to be able to use your approach. Well, if you can just document that approach, turn it into a half day, a full day, a 2-day, a weekend training retreat, and at the end of it you can say, here are here's everything that I do. Here are my processes, my procedures, and I want you guys to practice them, and let's get all your questions answered. At the end of it, you can say you've now been trained, certified, whatever, in whatever that approach happens to be. It is very interesting to me how many coaches, in particular, are no longer doing coaching. What they're doing now are training coaches on how to coach using their methodology, or coaching using whatever their approach happens to be. So what you guys are actually doing in that case is you are creating a certification training program. Obviously, we know what that business is like very intimately. And so how many of you have got enough difference in your process, procedure, technique, or method that you believe you could turn it into something that others would be interested in getting certified to do with their own clients? Yeah? All right, now you're talking about licensing fees. And so to give you just a glimpse into how we do things, obviously our primary focus is building our community. We do believe that the bigger the community gets, the more likely we are to stumble across the people we'd like to add to our team of certified professionals. And so we cast our net very, very wide. Join our community, knowing fully well that the vast majority of people who join our community will never become licensed in using anything that we do. That's fine. We're happy to have them. We love it. We want to give them as much value as we possibly can. Now, when we find those individuals who are appropriate for the license track, the certification track. Well, there's training fees that we can charge people or choose not to, depending on how you structure your price model. But there's licensing fees. Maybe you have it set up so that it's a per use fee, or maybe you license them for each client they use it with. You know, depending on what your technique is, you can put together several different kinds of packages that your newly certified professionals could actually choose from that better match with their business, et cetera. And so lots of ways you could do that, but there's a lot of opportunity in licensing. In fact, I'll share with you a phrase that, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, but our industry is filled with people that are talent heavy and content light. And so they really are very skilled trainers. They're really skilled speakers. They're really skilled consultants. They're really skilled coaches, but they need more stuff. They need material. They need some sort of tool or technique. They need something to expand their richness. They themselves have no interest or no inclination to be developing their own intellectual property, but they still need to keep their business vibrant and interesting and try to differentiate themselves however they can. So they're always looking for that thing that's going to give them that advantage in whatever the marketplace they're going after. And so there is a lot of opportunity for any of you who could become a supplier of programs, products, and services that support the industry rather than being in the industry as a provider of services to end users. Best example I can give you of this is the question, who made the most money during the gold rush? So if you guys have read anything about the gold rush, or you visited Alaska and decided to go to some of the national parks and actually hear all the stories about the story of the gold rush, truth be told, most of the money that had been made as far as the gold itself, the stake for the gold itself, had been already finished before worldwide news got out there about the gold rush. So the gold rush actually happened after the big discoveries of gold were made. And it took so long for these people who to hear about the gold rush and actually get themselves ready and go to it. You're not talking about a couple of hours. You're talking about months and months and months of preparation. So they were really able to go in there and get a lot more gold before anybody else arrived. And so who actually ended up making the most money from the gold rush were the people who sold picks and axes and shovels and sold you mules and supplies. It was the supplier to the industry, not the people who were actually out there. Obviously, you can imagine that the vast majority of gold miners found little or nothing but heartache and failure, and many of them met their demise as they went about doing this. And so you guys have a real different opportunity if you've got intellectual property, because it means that you can now become a supplier to the industry. Our industry is growing. Our industry grows every single year. Whether you want to look at ICF's statistics or the American Society for Training and Development, you can find countless studies to show that there is increasing interest in people becoming independent professionals in our industry. And mostly it's because there's an increasing awareness in the prospect base for the benefit of such services that we're offering. So there's more and more awareness around this, and it's easier and easier for us to deploy material. And so you guys just have to think, are you better off being a provider of services to end users, or are you better off becoming a supplier of programs, products, and services that individuals who provide services to end users can leverage? Okay, so let's see. All right, now next thing, tools. Now, when I'm talking about tools, I don't think it has to be something as sophisticated as a change grid. I think that anytime you create any sort of a worksheet, a form, this could be a very interesting tool for someone to use. And when I think about something like, how many of you know about the website Get It Done? Get It Done. There's also Do It Now. There's all these. This is basically a piece of task management software that people are building around. Well, that's a tool. Before that tool existed as an internet tool, it existed on paper. And so any tool that you create, any form that you generate can also be regarded as a form of intellectual property. Now, when you're doing this, you're basically saying to all those providers of services to end users, you don't really have enough material to build a certification course around it or enough material to build even a franchise operation around it. But you do have this very interesting tool, and you think people might benefit from using that tool. So whether you're going to create a new psychometric instrument, a personality test, a values inventory, or some kind of a planning tool, like at the bottom I have like planning guides, reference guides. These are things that other people could use that they would find very, very valuable. I'll give you one example. I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but DISC became part of the public domain back, I think, in the late 1980s. But certainly for the amount of time that the majority of us have been in private practice, DISC has existed in the private domain. That means anybody can teach DISC that wants to, and they're not violating any rule anywhere. So what ends up happening is that a lot of companies said, well, now that this is in the public domain, let's create a new DISC tool, whether it is an assessment or whether it's kind of like a quick reference guide, it's some sort of like a more in-depth planning sheet, a field guide. It's amazing how many different people, different companies have created tools that would be useful to someone who is using this concept of DISC. Now, there are some people who went on to create a specific DISC instrument, and they can certainly certify people in that DISC instrument, but they can't lay claim to DISC as intellectual property. It is beyond its time. So now it's in the public domain. Let's see if I'm getting any comments about that. Fun thing to research, though, as you guys look through that. Sooner or later, everything falls to the public domain. Okay. So now we go a little bit further. Courses. Now, I'm not talking about courses that you're certifying people in, but now it's more like a course that other people could end up taking, like the Dale Carnegie course. Yes, people could get certified to be Dale Carnegie instructors, but they then are out there selling the Dale Carnegie course. And so you can create any kind of course around it. So it's true, we do all kinds of certification training. We do licensing. We've got our ChangeWorks instrument. But we also have these specific courses. And these courses are something that the general public could tap into. So now we're not so interested in the general public anymore, so I don't know that we feel all that inclined to offer them in that format. But we still have those courses as part of our pile of intellectual property. And so now these are just some of the things that I thought of when it came to that. This one, oops, sorry, got to go backwards, sorry. Philosophy. You can certainly create a whole philosophy. You can create a movement. You can create a religion. You can create anything like that you want. Now what you're really doing is turning a philosophy into intellectual property. Now, there is a case to be made that until that philosophy is translated into written materials or into processes and procedures and tools and techniques and all that, it really isn't something you can turn into intellectual property, but that's not true. You can actually take the concept itself and lock it in place. And so, for example, we have this philosophy that at the heart of all human behavior is this level of tension. And if I want to help people to become more productive, to perform better, I need to look at their level of tension. And so from a philosophical perspective, everything that we do goes back to this nature of change kind of concept. So how does this level of tension impact what's going on? And so long ago, pardon me, we knew we would be calling this tension management. We'd be calling it productive tension. One moment. It's been so well. And so we decided we were going to go ahead and do all the copyright protections from the very beginning. When I created the concept of master stream, I went ahead and copyrighted that before I published anything whatsoever around the subject. And so you can actually just take something that's still just in your head, a philosophy, and you can establish some sort of intellectual rights to it, property rights to it, by naming it. So give it a name, you can do that. Now, that's going to get us to this last little part for today, and that is, what are the different types of IP protections that you could go after? And here's what I've learned, and you guys may know far more about it than I do, but this is what I've learned as we've created what we've created. The first thing was patents. We wanted to know whether or not the change grid could be patented. And as we looked into it, we found out that it's kind of in a gray area. It's not really a thing. It's not really an invention that has like parts and assembly directions and all that sort of stuff. It's not something that can be manufactured. It is something that exists online as a tool, but it's not using any unique kinds of programming. It's just using some very routine, basic sorts of things, but assembled together in a way that gives you the change grid. And so as we looked at it, I said, like, I'm not entirely sure that I invented anything, but I know that what I have to show for it is unique. And what the IP attorneys told us was that it really isn't something you want to patent, it's something you want to copyright. And there are elements of it that you can actually trademark, but there's this big gray area. Getting a patent is a very time-consuming, very expensive kind of thing, and so the advice was that was given us was that unless we thought we had a really solid chance of getting granted that patent, we wanted to think twice. The other thing is that once you patent something, all of its most intimate details are now part of public record. And so it's easy for someone to come along, read what it is you developed in its finest detail, and then recognize that they can just change one small little piece of it, and they are now able to claim it as their own. So they don't have to create something that's entirely different. They just have to modify whatever your process, your invention is, in even one slight way, and they can be granted their own patent for that. So patent protections, I really don't know, are really all that realistic, since we tend to be working more with printed material, recorded material, things like that. So copyrights are what we're really all about. So again, my advice for you today is go out there and copyright everything that you do. Just slap a copyright symbol on it with a date, and you're just fine. Yeah. Now, the next thing is about trademarks and service marks. When it comes to trademarks and service marks, there are three symbols that you are going to know. The number one is a little TM, trademark. When you put TM next to something, you're not doing something that's official as far as the government is concerned. You are saying, this is my intention to turn this into a trademark or into a service mark. And so you can say, this is a trademark, and then in your copy at the bottom of it, you can say that this phrase or whatever is a trademark of such and such a company, and so you can lay claim to it. But if you really want to protect something, it needs to become a registered trademark. Registered trademarks are something that the government grants to you, and it allows you then to put that little symbol R with a circle around it next to it. And we probably own a good, I don't know, dozen or so different registered trademarks on the things that are most important to us. And so my advice to all of you guys is that if it's something that you really want people to view as a brand name for what you're doing, so it's a trademark is a word or a phrase or a symbol that represents whatever your work is, you want to lock that in place. You do not need to hire an attorney to do that for you. If you go to the federal government's website on intellectual property or on copyrights and trademarks, go to the patent office, it has all the forms right there. The fees are actually quite reasonable, and as long as you follow the instructions, it's really pretty easy to do. And so while we did hire an attorney to help us with a couple of our registered trademarks, so once we kind of learned the process, we thought, why should I spend $1,000 or more to have an attorney help me do this when I can do it and pay the government its $200 fee or whatever it is that it wants for that particular kind of protection. Now, the only thing you really want to know about registered trademarks is they do not span across country lines. For example, in the United States, we hold a registered trademark for the phrase ChangeWorks. Anyone in the country who uses the word ChangeWorks describing any kind of service in the human development industry is violating our trademark, and we could take them to court and get them to cease and desist or charge them some sort of fine for whatever the damage they happen to be causing us for whatever reasons. However, directly across the border in Canada is a person I've known for years and years, Wyatt Woodsmall, and his company is ChangeWorks, but he's in Canada. And so now I existed before he did. I could go for an international trademark and could probably win because I've got so many things that contain the word trademark that have been copyrighted, and I sent myself that that official registered mail. So I've got lots and lots of proof about when I started using that mark to identify my program or identify my company, and I know that it precedes his. But then I'd have to go through all the work of getting the international trademark, et cetera, and I just don't know that I feel like fighting that battle. Nowadays, I guess long ago I didn't really think I had any interest in anything beyond, North America and even beyond the confines of the U.S. I didn't really have all that great of an interest in it. But you guys are in a different world now if you're creating your intellectual property fresh today. So you might want to look into international trademarks. When you get one of those, then I don't think it really protects you in every country on earth. It just basically says that here are all the member countries who have agreed to adhere to whatever the guidelines are in this international trademark kind of an office. And so if you guys want to do something in the international, you might as well go and get that protection there. So with that, that's our time for today. Hopefully I've given you guys some stimulation in the area of expanding your intellectual property. So hopefully you got something out of the call. Nobody left. That's always a good sign. So next week we're going to be talking about competitive differentiation. And certainly this idea about intellectual property is a really big differentiator. But there's a lot more differentiators we're going to be looking at. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. What is it that makes you different than everyone else? So with that, thank you, Lori says, always leave class with much to think about. Good. All right, everyone, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. So we got a big week this week. Again, those of you, if you've gone through Mastering Personal Change, you're welcome to go through ChangeWorks Essentials starting tomorrow. So take some time to really learn how the change grid works. So with that, thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.